Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Wrestling Underground podcast. I'm your host, as always, Chad. Joining me is Marcus. Marcus, the glorious one, how the hell are you?
Good man. Another show talking about love hate relationship currently going on with total nonstop action. A lot of interesting stuff tonight.
So, my goal going forward with our show, focus more on TNA, MLW, and everything underneath. NWA and all the little indies that pop up that we want to talk about. NWA's got Saul Wayne, Sam Hain, however you want to pronounce it, coming up in a couple weeks. And their indie territory, that's actually their biggest territory to boot, is NWA Exodus out of Cleveland. And I've been getting some inroads with them. EC3 runs it, and I'm excited to see how that show plays out. But those are the things I want to talk about. WrestlePalooza was this weekend, it was bad. All Out was this weekend, it was good. You either like those companies or you don't. I kind of like AEW. I couldn't give a damn about the WWE. It is hard to watch. And while TNA has lost its identity, by the by, that's one of the funniest. Like the tweet, someone calling MLW out for not having an identity, and I'm just like, what's TNA's identity? It's like the mid card of SmackDown circa 2018. Like what are you talking about? I'm excited to see how TNA develops. You know, especially if they get a new TV deal. I'm less concerned about WWE getting purchasing TNA if WWE does in fact get bought out by another entity, which is very possible. So we'll see what happens there. Um, as for what's coming up this week's show, we have Victory Road. We have an MLW pay per view. I think it's Fury Road. Both this weekend. Both should be exciting. The 26th of September should be a lot of fun. Um, so let's get into it, Marcus. We'll address this real briefly. I don't want to get into details. If you go to our Twitter account, NERD Nerdcorp on Twitter, you'll see a retweet. There's been some accusations against NXT star, not NXT, TNA star. I have NXT on, which is why the flub. Against TNA star Masha Slamovich. We're not going to go into them. There are accusations by a former MLW wrestler, Akira. He's not even making them directly. They're being made on his behalf by someone on Twitter who got a hold of private texts. We're not going into that only because the legality of it. Now, I don't think anyone involved has the money to throw a frivolous lawsuit at us, but also it's a breaking story, and I feel it would be irresponsible to go forward with only the one source. It's a reason why I haven't spoken about Masha Slamovich in the past because I do have some inside information on her behaviors. I only have one person telling me it. And when you report things, you want two sources from independent outlets, or not outlets, but people. You don't want them to be like sharing a locker room and sharing the same story. You want two different people at two different locations telling the same story. That's how you confirm a story. I only have one. I got one source. I need two. And so because I don't have two, I'm not going to talk about it in depth, but let's just say that if the story I was told was correct, this isn't surprising. So we'll talk about that next week when we have more information, if we get more information. What I want to focus on, though, this week is Victory Road, Fury Road, some news that are breaking in both companies. I think it's a lot of fun what's going on. So let's talk about Victory Road first and foremost. Um, we have 6 announced matches. I assume we're going to get another two because TNA likes to do 8 matches. They don't do five. They're not WWE, at least yet. The aforementioned Masha Slamovich is going to take on Ash by Elegance. I don't know if tonight's breaking news will affect Masha long term in TNA or if it'll affect Masha at all in TNA. But if it does, we might see here on Friday what happens. Because while I think Indy and Ash is the um, planned bound for glory. I could also see wanting to put Masha in there with Indy because Masha's a better wrestler than Ash, and Indy is terrible. So you want to try to make Indy look as good as possible because it does look like TNA wants Indy to be their new superstar of the Knockouts division. And listen, she's charismatic, she's attractive, she's got a good look. She's not good though. Just talent wise, she's lacking. She's the worst wrestler on the Knockouts roster, and aside from non full time wrestlers like Jenna Morasco and Charmel, I think Indy Hartwell might be the worst knockout in the history of the company in terms of talent. Every match she's in is just boring, sloppy, and drags. I don't know why they're strapping the
Yeah,
rocket to her.
yeah. It's also some tragic irony that the two best knockouts in the division currently are have a very specific bit of outside negativity being tested in Monster. Like the outside package is questionable. If we could switch the two of them with the narrative of this young this young lady, we'd be in good straits. But that's not the case. Um, and I can appreciate Andy Hartwell, but I'm with you on this. The talent's just not there. When steps in the ring, it's nothing. I don't like Ash more than I like her. And we know Ash is, she can go, but it's just capped off at a certain gear. So um, we working with what we can in the knockout division right now. I feel like we've been saying that for the past year and a half. You definitely been calling it longer than that. I feel like I've been like calling on the Imaginary phone for us like to send up a R signal in the sky for Rosemary, but
Yeah, I would go and switch gears and put Rosemary in the situation. She can still go well enough that she can get a good match out of people. And she's interesting enough, and she's one of the few people who doesn't need to reboot her character because she always finds a new way to reinvent it. So, like, I
yeah,
don't know. This feels rough. Speaking of rough, Mike Santana's going to take on Ridge Holland. I don't. It's like, listen, I don't have any issues with Ridge Holland as a human being. He is the one that broke Biggie's neck. It was an accident. D'Lo Brown broke Draw's neck. Goldberg kicked a hole in Bret Hart's head. Sting landed on Rick Rude, causing him to break his back and retire. Now, that was more or less the structure at New Japan at the time. They had like that raised stage on an elevated platform, and Sting jumped from the ring onto Rude, who was on the platform, and they fell back, and Rude hit the cusp of the platform, so it wasn't directly Sting's fault. Seth Rollins tried to end Sting's career. Maybe that's a little bit harsh to phrase it that way. I don't care. Owen Hart broke Stone Cold's neck. Sometimes this shit happens. This isn't why I dislike Rich. I dislike Rich because he sucks. And with Mike Santana going in to the main event of Bound for Glory against Trick Williams, I don't understand why Rich Holland is involved in this because like he has no affiliation with Trick. If anything, Rich should be trying to get himself involved into the match so he can take the belt off of Trick himself because the title is the only thing that matters. Like if Trick had like a running buddy or something, that would make more sense. But this is just some random ass match with a wrestler who's not very good. And a half, 3 weeks before Bound for Glory. Like Bound for Glory is like what the 14th. It's coming up. It's not
yeah,
that far
basically,
off.
yeah. He's a prepper for the Bound for Glory match, which again
Would you say
kind
he's
of
a
feels like
fluffer?
both brands are basically. It's crazy that both brands are collaborating, but it feels like they're both lost at the same time.
Right. October 12th, not the
Like it's
14th, the
it's
12th.
yeah, like it's weird. Like NXT is 100% working in their uh building up mode again. Like some of their guys are like primed and good, like Devon Evans and Oba Femi, quick to an extent. and a couple other names, but for the most part, we getting like Dark State, uh, JC James crew, and some others, and it's like nobody of anybody of real note or high acumen in the ring. Besides a couple people, and we know what we're working with in TNA. I mean, it's not like we got a roster full of Santanas. Even though we do still got some names, we just went over the knockout stuff. So, like you said, it's a fluffer for Bound for Glory. Rich will provide a tough challenge, but not nothing that anything that Santana hasn't overcome in better fashion with better opponents over the last year and a half. He's been getting properly built towards this stuff.
You're not wrong. I'm curious to see how this all plays out, but I don't have high hopes. It's Ridge Holland after all. In a match, I think should be a show stealer. Although Mustafa Ali should also be in the conversation for that. Leon Slater versus Myron Reed for the X Division Championship. I have no doubt that Leon Slater is going to continue on. He is, a burgeoning superstar. He is one of the best names on your roster. Has all the athletic talent in the world. He needs to develop his in ringness beyond his athleticism. He's like 20 if he's a day old, right? Ricochet needed time. Ricochet
Yeah,
is a better wrestler today than he was 10 years ago, right? But like just because he's better now doesn't mean that like his matches weren't great then. They were. But you still needed time. You still needed time to
yeah,
develop who you were. And Leon does. It's just the nature of the beast. That being said, I do feel like Leon is probably their best prospect in years, and I'm excited to see where they go because Myron, I'm sorry, Leon is fantastic. Um, Myron
yeah.
has always impressed me. His run in MLW is fantastic. His partnership with who is Jordan Oliver when they were what the hell were they called? I can't. They were trying to like be like kind of like a modern day nation, but with more of a youth centered focus.
Mm,
I forget what they were
mm.
called, but like it was those two and a third guy whose name escapes me. Um, 'Cause I think
Yeah,
Rich
that group,
Swan.
and he's
I think
also
Rich
like an OG
Swan was in it.
Rascal, correct?
What's that?
I said because he had that group, and he's also an OG Rascal, correct?
Yes, he is. Coda Brazil. He was the other one. Rich Swan was in it for a brief spell, but it's really was just Jordan Oliver and Myron Reed. Though it would be cool to see Jordan Oliver if he's healthy back in not back but in TNA, and if they ever decide to actually move
Yeah,
on from AJ Francis, which would be great because I can't stand that dude. Having Jordan Oliver and Myron Reed and Rich Swan reform Injustice,
yeah,
oh, that'd be fantastic.
mm,
Especially if it's like directly opposed to the Rascals.
yeah.
That would be dope.
I know. Yeah, I know. Real quick that you had mentioned Ricochet and seeing his rise. And obviously, like you said, uh, Slater's young. He definitely got time, but like you said, improving that character and that personality could do some big leaps and bounds for him as he matriculates. Because he got, like you said, he got all the athleticism and everything in the ring. It's only going to get better. All the other things that you saw with Ricochet, kind of improvements that he could maybe take a page out of. I know, obviously, I think Ricochet picking up size certainly helped with the aesthetic appeal, but also with some other stuff in the ring as well.
It certainly helped him with injuries. When you have more muscle, you can displace more injuries with the size. The one thing I would say that most guys should look at with Ricochet is how Ricochet developed a character that worked for him. He became a cringe crash out Andrew Tate meme, and it's worked. People love that. Um, I think Leon needs to develop a bit of his own personality. Right now, he's like that blue chipper rookie prospect, and that's good enough for now. But like, we need to see more from him. And I think with time and the ability to develop around him with promos and figuring out kind of an identity, I think he'll get there. I think he's too talented not to. I mean, hell, if you can make Seth Rollins over, like you can get anyone over. Speaking of over, Moose and Mustafa Ali are about to end their long-running feud with Order 4 and the System when they go head-to-head as a group at Bound for Glory. Before then, though, however, you have the two feuding in a one-on-one match heading into Victory Road. I think this could be the match of the night. It should be interesting. I don't know if we'll see a definitive end because, of course, the idea is to build up to Bound for Glory. With that said, though, I think you're in for one of the better matches. I don't like Mustafa as a personality. I think he lacks something, but the Order 4 stuff has definitely made me see him in a different light. And while I still don't think he's, this great world champion in the making that so many people thought he was when he was in WWE, I do think this role benefits him, truly. That being said, I'm more excited about the Bound for Glory match between their groups than I am about their singles match. Any thoughts on the Mustafa match? Or
Yeah, I'm keeping my
Mustafa,
eye on
as
this
we're
one.
calling him.
Mustafa. Yeah. That'll be a thick post if somebody was motivated to do some of TNA's posters the way they do the AEW ones. But yeah, I'm definitely keeping my eye open for that match. Actually, both of those matches kind of steal the show. We know the X Division always show up and shows out. And I think Myron and they put on a banger. But when it comes to experience, Moose is you know, I guess we call him Big Match Moose at this point. And Mustafa is a guy I think that could always rise to the occasion. I've loved him in the role he's been in. I think he's been certainly one of the better things on the show in terms of consistency, like you said, with Order 4 and everything that they did with that, obviously, what he did with the X Division title was good. And I think more oftentimes than not, he certainly shows that he can deliver in the ring in a myriad of scenarios. So I'm looking forward to seeing how these two collaborate. And I think, to your point, like you said, this could really be the match of the night. These guys got a lot of big matches and big stages under their belt. And one of those matches that if you can tell somebody going into the match that it wasn't for a title, it's probably gonna feel like that if they given the time.
Agreed. I think we're in for a treat. I think Heather by Elegance and M
Yeah,
by Elegance have been underrepresented so far in this stable. And while I don't think the Inspiration are especially good wrestlers, I think if the Elegance brand has a good match in their TNA Knockouts tag defense, um, I think what you may see is hope that Heather and M could be more than what they are beyond this gimmick, which I think is at best pretty weak. I'm excited about this because M by Elegance has a lot of hype around her. People saw her as someone with a lot of potential when she came into TNA. She was making some waves, getting some notice, and I think she came in right before people would have started talking about her, maybe not in the same vein as someone like Julia or Stephanie Vakir, but, Bozilla over in GCW who popped up in AEW last month. I think she was on the cusp of hitting that level. So I think this match could help you determine whether or not these two can really help out the Knockouts division regain its former glory, and especially if they have a good match with the Inspiration. The Inspiration, I think, are great characters. I don't know if I need to see them with the tag titles again, at least anytime soon. Any thoughts on this one?
and they're going against who?
The Elegance brand versus the Inspiration.
Uh, yeah, agreed. Misrepresentation is interesting because inspiration.
The former Iconics.
Yeah, I gotta gotcha, thank you. Yeah, I gotta go with I gotta lean towards more of the elegance brand on here. Just because you continue that momentum coming off of obviously her winning the knockout style. I'm bringing that home. I've just never really been into the Iconics for any iteration that they've done. Um, but they can go, and I think they certainly serve a purpose. I'm glad they came back to the brand because I know that the division has needed some bolstering. But I'm looking for them to because they already ran this match for that Slammiversary. Uh, so we'll see. And you said this for the title.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going with the Elegance brand, but I wouldn't be surprised if they get them on this one. Like I said, because they all passed former knockouts champions.
Yeah, you're right. They did run this back. The only difference is that was Ash and Heather. So M is replacing Ash in this match. It's a little bit different.
Okay.
Hopefully, it's a lot better because that was not a great match. By the by, if you're watching NXT right now, we're recording. We're broadcasting live on twitch.tv/Wrestling Underground. We do that about every Tuesday. But also, if you're watching on youtube.com/Wrestling Underground, we're recording during NXT's episode. And so far, Steve Macklin, Eric Young, who else? Frankie Kazarian, Mike Santana. I think Yingling Lee. I think I said her name correctly. It's a shot, Cedric Alexander. It looks like a good chunk of TNA talents are in the audience. So that's probably about 12% of the audience is TNA talent at this point because there are only like 80 people. So, I have to assume that this match, which is Obafemi versus Strick Williams, which has kind of plotted up until this point, title for title, I think it's going to end in a schmage. Oh, look, Victoria's there. I'll say this. I do want to talk more about TNA as a show going forward, which is something that we'll address, beyond tonight, but we have a lot of things that aren't show specific tonight. I am enjoying Victoria's segments a lot. She has this Valley Girl thing going on that I think is oddly intriguing, and like the way she hits her enunciations and cadences, I see why they're featuring her on television as much as she is. And she certainly does one thing better than Tessa, besides not being racist, which is talk. I don't think Victoria Crawford, the former Alicia Fox, I don't think she's a great wrestler. Never
Nope.
have. I was always very attracted to her. But also, I think she's genuinely very entertaining. And it's nice that she's getting this second run. And I think her role kind of as
Yeah,
a manager is starting to warm to me. I just don't like who she's being paired with.
yeah. She's always popped when she's another one of those names not at all too dissimilar from Chelsea Green, and that she's oftentimes been given a little and had to make a lot out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, while you like you said, she's not you know blowing anybody away in the ring. She always did have a nice Northern Lights bridging Northern Lights, but yeah, I'm glad that's kind of working out because in other times she's just kind of been annoying and like you the interesting comparison to Tessa, like they tried to give her some credibility by bringing her out with Tessa as Tessa was um oh that wasn't the show when she was fully embracing Latina heritage or whatever she was doing that night. That was but she also got food for, but she was already getting food for the race and stuff, so she train wreck. But yeah, Victoria's managing who now?
Victoria's managing Tessa.
Isn't she suspended?
Yes, but she'll be back for NXT for Bound for Glory, I would assume. I gotta figure out why I keep saying disconnect. I can
That
I can
is.
hear you. We may have to switch to a different.
You check something right quick.
No, everything's fine. It just keeps telling me that
Yeah.
we're dropping on Discord. We may have to switch to a second outlet because Discord has and always is a pain in the ass to use. But we're good. Everything's like, everything's copacetic. Oh, Cassie Lee's there. Like I think the entire TNA roster is here tonight. I digress. We have one more match to talk about. It's Steve Macklin versus Frankie Kazarian. I believe this will be the main event. It's going to be for the international championship. Macklin has won me over with his quality of matches. I don't think he's a world champion, right? Like I don't see him being that guy. And part of the reason is they rushed him. When you
Mm,
rush someone into their first main event spot, main event world title run, it goes badly. And I think about, I think it was either Bon Jovi's behind the music or Metallica's behind the music. I want to say it was Bon Jovi's behind the music on VH1 way back in the day, a throwback. And they basically said that when you get your first headlining tour, you either make or break whether or not you can be a headlining act. And if you don't, you will never be a headlining act on tour again. And I feel like there's a lot of truth to that when you win your first world title. If you don't win it in a way that makes you seem great, that you're the centerpiece of the show, I feel like oftentimes you lose whatever potentiality you have as being a headliner. Stone Cold won his first at WrestleMania. It worked out for him pretty good, right? Same with Shawn Michaels. Seth Rollins cashed in, and while he has like a fan base that likes to sing his songs, he's never proven to be a big draw without the WWE banner behind him. There's some guys like Drew McIntyre who you just kind of look at and you're like, oh, you'll always just be someone's number two option, huh?
yeah.
So there's this idea that because Macklin had his first world title match against Kushida and how kind of ho hum it was, and his run after that was pretty inconsequential, I think it ruined his ability to be a headliner. By the by, we'll get back to this conversation real quickly. They're having their Donnybrook, right? It went for a
Yeah.
minute, and it was mostly focused on Ricky Starks and Obafemi holding up the same belt. I'm sorry. This is the worst storyline
Yeah.
in the history of pro wrestling. This is terrible.
I'm 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 behind you on the on I guess on the timing with the TV. Yeah, this is so much for the invasion. That continues to be right as usual with this stuff. But yeah, how much, if anything, because the thing I like when he originally was going for the world title was how obsessive he became with
Mm-hmm.
winning the title, but specifically off Josh Alexander. Um, do you think a lot of it was hurt by the fact that he didn't actually win the title off Alexander because he got injured, correct, before he got a chance to get to him?
Correct. And I do think that did hurt because if you beat Josh Alexander for the world title, I think it sets you up. Now, here's the thing. Alexander won his first, if I'm not mistaken, by beating Christian Cage and then immediately losing it to Moose. I think that hurt Alexander too. I really do. The difference though is Alexander did win it one on one and looked good in the process, and then they poorly booked his first run. But I don't feel like it made him look, not like a headliner, but as someone who clearly is being dealt with by a less than great championship direction committee. I think the bookers really didn't do Alexander any good. Macklin, however, was just misserved. He was given. I know Scott Demore loves Kushida.
Yeah,
Kushida at his apex in Japan, where he's a
yeah.
beloved icon, is a mid carder at
Mm.
best. And then you tried to get him over in the US as a headlining option? No. And like I can't remember who was on the roster when that whole thing went down, but I got to imagine that you had some better options than those guys, right?
Which I think brings up another good thing. Do you? Because I know you talked about like they shot him too early. I feel like the person they've done the best with in terms of consistent because Joe Hendricks thing has just been
Terrible.
like they best moment of the year when they put it on him, and then after that it's kind of caged, particularly with this whole NXT thing. But I think Santana has had the best consistent build since he's been there. Have they misstepped by not doing more with Kazarian, and do you think this is the prime opportunity for them to finally pull the gun with him here?
Yeah, to win the international championship, yes. To win the world title,
Yeah,
I don't know. With all the with all the fuckery that's been going on with Hendry in the world title and then Trick Williams with the world title, I think there's a
yeah,
small group that would really be cool with Frankie winning the title, and I think there would be a lot there. And I need to say this now: if Santana is leaving at the end of the year, because there are rumors that both Joe Hendry and Mike Santana are on WWE shortlist. If Santana wants to go to WWE, I think he has 1 year left on his contract, if I remember correctly, and it's an option year. If he decides that he really doesn't want to do that year and TNA is like, okay, and lets him leave, I don't think he wins at Bound for Glory, right? Or I think he may win it and then lose it to Frankie almost immediately. But if you're not going to have Mike Santana with you for the next year, right? I think you find a way to get the belt on Frankie because Frankie's proven that he can, keep fans interested in the segments. He's a good promo. The whole Elvis shtick, which is not just only a great idea for him being the king of TNA, but also a nice throwback to the very first ever match in TNA history, where Jerry Lynn,
yeah,
Loki, and AJ Styles took on the Flying Elvises. I think that's great. And I think you can find something there. And if you have him beat Macklin, then you have him beat Mike Santana for the world title, or even Trick for the world title. Dope. That being said, as far as Macklin goes, I'm looking at the stuff that we had the night he won the belt when he defeated Kushida. He didn't even headline the show. Do you remember that? It was Deanna Prazo and Jordan Grace. Here's who we had
yeah,
on the card that night. I don't think Frankie was part of the roster full time yet. You had Moose, you had Jonathan Gresham, Eddie Edwards, you had Sammy Callahan, you had Joe Hendry, although he was just starting his run. You had both Shelley and Sabin. Shelley of which would actually go on to win the world title, I think later that year from Macklin in the main event of their their June show out of Columbus, which I went and saw live. So like you had options. Hell, you had Heath and Rhino if you wanted to get weird. You didn't have a lot of options, granted, but you had options. So
yeah,
I think that hurt Macklin, and I think if you're ready to pull the trigger on Kazarian, now is the time to do it. He is 48, if not older, so I feel like if not now, then when? But I also feel
yeah,
like this is his best run to date. Yeah, he's 48. This is his best run to date since I would say 2007. So 18 years ago. So I'd like to see what he could do.
yeah.
So far though,
Same. Like,
yeah, go on.
I know it's good to finally hear you kind of turn over on Macklin. Should he drop the belt? I think we both agree on. What direction would you take him? Because I don't think you're going to put him in the world title hunt.
Actually, I would.
Um,
Um, if
he
so,
would.
so let's just say if Frankie wins, takes the belt. Maybe Frankie goes on to win a world title. I think you set up Macklin, Eddie, and Moose to be the next set of guys, right? If Santana wins and he's sticking around, maybe you don't go Macklin in the world title because you have you have to set up some heels and you have to have some faces. And right now, Macklin seems to have the heart and soul of the TNA roster on his side. So maybe you have Macklin team with Santana and feud with maybe Mustafa in order four. Maybe you bring someone else in. Maybe you have him tag with Mr. Anderson, two former veterans tagging up to try to go for the world tag titles. I think the tag title scenes needs to be shaken up. And I've been thinking about the idea of just doing like a X Division 6 man tag situation where you have like a 6 man tag title, and I think the Hardy Boys and Leon Slater would be great for that. Um, I do think we need to figure out some new things for the Hardy Boys to do while they're under contract because otherwise, like them just being world tag champs, it's just going to get boring and old. And outside of maybe putting over the next young tag team as well as this Team 3D match at Bound for Glory, which could be terrible. I don't see what's left on the bone for them as headlining acts without developing someone new around them.
Would you? Well, I know this is probably the worst of options, but would you split them and put one towards X and the other one? hovering around the world title situation to just add another body to that? If you kind of alleviate them away from the tag team division.
So if they're up for it, yes, Jeff X Division. I think he still moves the best of the lot. I think him
Yeah,
and Leon could have a fun little like mentor mentee feud. But also on the flip side, I think Matt going for the international title if Frankie wins on Friday, I think that would be great.
yeah.
That would be something you do post Bound for Glory. But I think you can, put them off there. Maybe you put Matt in a non-title feud with someone. Same with Jeff. You bring them back together. Maybe you create an X Division six-man tag title. There's a lot of ways you can go with all that. I just think that we need to change up what we're doing with the Hardys, and I think maybe even going back to the broken stuff and having Jeff go back to Willow. I think that could be a lot of fun as well,
Mm,
especially if they then decide to bring those chaotic personalities together in a feud. I think that could be a lot of fun. But we'll see what happens post Bound for Glory. But at Bound for Glory, Marcus, we do have some big news. Apparently announced last night, and I don't know why no one else was talking about this. I saw this on no news sites. They've announced that the 2025 inductee for the TNA Hall of Fame is going to be Mickie James. So she'll be there Sunday night on October 12th to be inducted in Boston. I don't. I feel like Mickie is kind of one of those names that we give too much love to at times. Like Stephanie McMahon's
mm,
going into the WWE Hall of Fame, but for what? She was on screen all the time because she was the boss's daughter, not because she was truly great. She was a terrible wrestler, mediocre on the mic, and really anything she was involved with dragged down the product. And I feel like there's a part of me that feels the same about Mickie in the sense where even though she was a good wrestler, too many people were fans of her in booking positions and gave her way too much to do, especially later in her career. I don't feel like her
mm.
last run in TNA, like the whole last run or last ride, whatever it's called, that was a waste of
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
I thought it was a real waste of time, especially when you're trying to build up young stars around them and you keep having them job to Mickie. Now, that being said, I think historically, she's had 3 runs in TNA, I think, maybe more. Historically, I think she is a Hall of Famer from what she did in WWE, from what she did in TNA. She was arguably one of
yeah,
the first few true knockouts on the roster. Her, um, who was it? Trinity, handful of others. Mickie James was known as Alexis Lurie, and she was
yeah,
a member of Raven's group with CM Punk and Julio De Niro, if I remember correctly. So, like, significance, well earned the Hall of Fame. I just feel like her last 5 to 7 years in wrestling have been underwhelming, and I'm tired of people pretending
mm.
that she had a better run the last few years than she actually did. Though it does look like she's retired.
Yeah, yeah. I think she do certain little stuff here and there, but I think she got her eye on other endeavors. Um, and obviously, her family's still in the business because, obviously Nick is the SmackDown GM. But yeah, I mean, we both, I mean, we covered it the whole last run in TNA, and it was more down and up. I think even she at times knew that she wasn't living up to the standards she wanted to live up to. Even in her match with Trinity, I think she wanted to do more or show up in a better way than she did, and she did what she best that she could. But I think she's at that stage now where she's behind a generation or two. Um, and it's just that gear is just not up to snuff. Her gear is just not up to snuff of what we're seeing from these new women. I mean, hell, even Trinity upped her game before she had to dealing with Jordan Gray. So, um, yeah, but she's certainly a Hall of Famer. It just sucks that like you said, there was times when there was more emphasis put on her than perhaps there should have been, but she undoubtedly got a better look, treatment, and overall run in TNA than she did in WWE. To me, um, I think in every time I feel like she's been in the company, maybe more so not as Alexis or Ray, but certainly as the hardcore country iteration, certainly. But Alexis didn't get more press, but you know everything's kind of around the big fishes. But it's cool that she's getting that, and certainly again, as we continue to say, TNA Hall of Fame is years and years and years behind WWE, but for some reason feels like they have more credibility.
Mm-hmm. So you're right. She's done a few matches. It looks like five in total since her last run in TNA. So who knows? Maybe we'll get a match from her at Bound for Glory. Apparently, she's working with OVW. I don't know what
Mm.
that's about. So let's move on. Uh, this past week, we saw another Legend of the Ring return, Mr. Anderson. I know a lot of people are going to be like, hey, I haven't seen him in 9 years. In fact, the hilarious thing about it is he came out, did this thing with Frankie Kazarian, got beat up by Jake something. Steve Macklin came down. The last time I think we saw him in wrestling, in TNA specifically, I think was when he wrestled Eric Young on an episode of Impact and was inebriated or was accused of being inebriated and then got fired. I frankly love Mr. Anderson. Always have. He was one of the reasons I got back into the NWA, besides Nick Aldis and Eli Drake, obviously. So seeing him back in TNA is great. I don't know for how long. TNA has been doing this thing where they bring in guys with some notoriety. We had the Colognes for a couple weeks. I think Chavo popped up this summer. Mr. Anderson now. So I don't know if we're going to see more of him going forward. I'd like to. I don't think he's washed by any means. And if you put him in a couple of lower tier singles matches, maybe if you can land someone like a man like Doris, you could have them do like a great feud based around their mic skills, and you could help elevate him up the roster. You could pair him with a young guy like we mentioned Steve Macklin, not exactly young, but you could pair him with Steve Macklin and do the chase for the tag titles. There's a lot you could do with him that doesn't involve him being in the world title scene. Now, if he comes out and has a good match, and you're like, hey, maybe we can get a good world title match out of him. They did the same thing with Bully Ray. Why not? But I would like to see more Mr. Anderson as things progress within the company and with the direction where they're going. Marcus, any thoughts on Mr. Henderson?
Everything you said, man. He's one of my more favorite wrestling personalities, both when he was in WWE and certainly when he was in TNA. He's just a good guy. Obviously, one of our favorite shared TNA moments was that cage match he had with Kurt Angle.
Mm-hmm.
Kurt Angle, dick stepped on coming out the ring, but he really lived up to that a-hole name and moniker, man. And it's I mean, when he was Mr. Kennedy, he was one of the funniest people on screen to me, just saying his last name twice. But I mean that wisdom, that knowledge he could pass on to the roster. He could be, a great intermediary for Santino or what have you. And if he can still go in the ring, even better, you know. And like you said, why not? I mean, you saw what they did. They even used Bully Ray right at the time, and he was barely do anything. But they used him right in the right spots, in the right store. Certainly with Alexander during that period when he was champion. That got it probably executed. Um, Now I don't know if the same brain trust is there. Obviously not. So hopefully he has more control as he clearly knows what he's doing with stuff. So um, he's just not one of those names where it's like things are going to get worse. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with him. I'm glad he's been able to come back. For some reason, he just never came up on my radar as somebody in the ethos of TNA names that would have popped up for some reason. But I'm glad, pleasant surprise, certainly.
I agree. I agree completely. Um, Hopefully we see more of him sticking around, especially because the product needs more worthwhile people to watch. Not
Yeah.
you lost so much talent. and you're not really holding it up with a lot of the guys you have on your roster currently. Yes, he's 49. Yes, he is old. Yes, he's not exactly a spring chicken. But also, we're at this point where sometimes you just need people worth tuning in to watch, even if they are old. And I feel like he's one of those guys. You know, you put him on the mid card, have him build up some younger guys. I think you could, really find something there. So here, here's hoping. This weekend we also get Fury Road. The card is as signed. Austin Aries will take on Kushida in a Opera Cup match. Teton will take on Volador Jr. Paul London will take on Okamura. I think this is the first time those two have ever collided, actually. Also, Shotzi Blackheart will take on Alejandra Quintala. Atlantis, Blue Panther, and Diego Hill will take on the Marauding Pirates of El Galleon, Phantasma, which includes Zandokan Jr., Defuento, and Barboza. And a lightning match, which is like a 5 minute time limit or a 7 minute time limit, will feature Satoshi Kojima taking on Mr. Thomas, the former second for Alex Kane. So, oh, and apparently Contra will mark their next target with Mads Kruger now prevailing as world champion. I know there's some people online who want to shit on MLW because they don't have an identity. And listen, when you're revival, and you need to hear this because this is important. When your revival involves Swerve Strickland, MJF, Alexander Hammerstone, and a variety of names that have now solidified AEW and TNA. Yeah, you look around and you see a bunch of CMLL wrestlers. Maybe you think they lost their identity, but also, and I'm gonna say this with all due sincerity, I believe the PWI 100 or 500 is coming out, right? And one of the names that are going to be in the top 10 at number 10, I believe, is Mystico, who this time a decade ago couldn't find a job to save his life because the WWE used him so poorly. He had to change his name to Mysticist because CMLL wouldn't take him back. He ended up going to AAA. I think he spent some time in the Crash. He didn't do great. And then he finally found his way back to CMLL and started to rebuild his reputation. But MLW brought him back up before AEW, before anyone. And he made him look like $1,000. They made him the middleweight champion, had him be the Opera Cup champion for the first year he was eligible for the tournament. He's been used really well. And while you may think MLW doesn't really have an identity, I would put out a simple idea that MLW gave guys like Swerve Strickland and MJF a platform. They've done it again with Alexander Hammerstone, Alex Kane, Myron Reed, so many other guys.
Fatu,
What's that?
Taker
Fatu,
Fatu.
Fatu, exactly. You also have the fact that they are rehabbing guys. Hammerstone is being reevaluated because of his current run in MLW after his disastrous run in TNA. You have Mystico being rehabilitated. Shotzi's now in there. Austin Aries is getting another opportunity at Wrestling Life. Um, so there's a lot of value here, I think, as a brand, and I think people should be very excited about this show and the upcoming shows they have because one, they're free. You can watch them for free, and I think when you realize just how expensive the world is because of so many things, and how expensive the WWE is to be involved with, and even how expensive AEW is. Although I would say that it's probably a lot cheaper for a family of four to go to an AEW show than a WWE show. Sure, when you have an MLW who I think they cap their ticket prices at $20 a pop. That's a necessary thing, and to be able to see a lot of guys like Austin Aries, who's a legend in the industry, even if you don't like him, Shotzi, who's incredibly popular, Mystico, who's a legend. I think you fail to understand the value that's there with MLW, and I think they're identity is building and rehabbing talents while providing a economical choice for wrestling fans to go see a major show. And I think their identity's been intact for years. So that's why
Yeah,
we're kind of shedding light on Fury Road this weekend.
yeah, I mean, agree with everything you said. Real quick, and this might be, forgive me, because this might be me asking you to pull out one too many needles in a haystack. But how many times has that happened with a talent like Mystical, where they were like the bee's knees as an international talent, obviously elsewhere, came to the states, bombed, but then also um, re rose in the states.
I think I want to say this with some room, right? Some grace. I'm sure it's happened before.
Yeah.
But like I'm thinking of like Kenta. He only really rebounded after going back to New Japan, and then
New Japan. Yeah.
he's now experiencing a greater revival in Noah. I think he's the world champion. Ultimo Dragon flamed out in WWE and really never came back to the States. Um, maybe LA Park, although that would be another MLW kind of situation. When he was in MLW before him and his sons fucked around and found out, I think he was having the most significant push of his career this side of the border. But what I would say is that when you look at the substantial increase in notoriety, um, observation, eyes on, and overall presence among the fandom, while AEW may have gotten him over the finish line, the first 75% of it was his work in MLW, at least when we're talking about United States fans. He had some bangers with Kenta. He had, I think who was it? Was it Myron Reed? I think he won the belt from. He's had so many good matches in MLW. Now, not Dave Meltzer 5 stars, but good. And I think people saw what he could really do. And I think part of why he is where he is because of MLW, absolutely. But also, I think his revival is tenfold when you look at just how he's impacted the larger wrestling ethos beyond MLW. He's a major player right now in an AEW storyline with MJF. He's helped revitalize AAA, not AAA, excuse me, CMLL with the current upheaval in Mexican pro wrestling due to the WWE purchase of AAA. I've never seen a wrestler revive his career so spectacularly after bombing so hard. Like you've seen some guys bounce back, right? But this dude was the biggest thing in Mexico. Everyone loved him, and WWE flopped so hard with him. And now I would say he's either as popular, just slightly less than popular where he was in 2008, 2009, or even more so in Mexico. And I think that says something about his talents and what he can do for a brand. And I hope, beyond hope, that TNA is able to land him in some sort of deal because I think the X Division would benefit from having a guy like Mystico hold your belt. Now, I think part of it has to do with the fact that he got healthy. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he was on TRT or if he had some type of what is it, stem cell. I think that would be a very obvious thing. I think for him to have like stem cell therapy because you see a lot of guys do it. Rey Mysterio had it. John Morrison had it. I'm sure others do. But that revitalizes your body and helps elongate your career. And I think he moves as well today as he ever has. And I think part of it is because that Mexico has different rules for what they're willing to do for health and wellness. So I think Mystico is definitely one of one when we talk about guys who revitalized his career so significantly. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that again. We might see it again eventually, but prior to that, no, it's shocking, really.
Yeah.
Uh, Coming up on the next show for MLW, you have beyond this, you have Slaughterhouse, which is going to be on October 4th. And Shotzi's introducing a new talk show called The Graveyard Shift, which is a pretty dope concept. Marcus, do you have any interest in checking out MLW with Shotzi Blackheart, who became very synonymous with NXT's Halloween Havoc? Considering all the things that she is, affiliated with Halloween wise, is this something that you
Yeah,
want to check out?
yeah, it is because ironically enough, and I think we covered this when it initially happened. I had really Shaka was just kind of one of those alternative. Obviously, she has a unique aesthetic, and she obviously stood out. But other than just looking different than most of the women on the roster, I didn't really pay no attention. Then they did that Halloween Havoc episode. I'm like, yo, she got a real like new age Elvira swag about her
Mm-hmm.
in her own unique way, and she's like stunning in her own way, but still with that whole scary gothic type feel. Um, and she really like captivated me that night. I've kind of been paying attention to her ever since. She's another one of those girls who benefits greatly from a style like MLW because she's more extreme and hardcore as opposed to a traditional match, which she could do, but she thrives in those other scenarios. So they're giving her own segment. I think that's another one of those areas where she can thrive in certain. So I definitely check that out.
I will too. MLW has another major piece of news attached to them this week. They currently have, I think, the oldest major champion in the history of wrestling. Uh, they had the MLW National Championship on Ultimo Guerrero, and Ultimo Guerrero was like 53, and he could move. He's not what he was 20 years ago. He could still move, right? Good wrestler. But now I think Ultimo Guerrero was the oldest champion they ever had. Let me see something. May have been Kojima.
Said in the history of wrestling.
Yeah, building up to that. I think Kojima was 53 or 54. So I think either Kojima or Ultimo Guerrero were the oldest world champion or major champion in MLW history. I now
Okay, and the
believe
company's got
I now believe that not only is that no longer the case, but I believe that this might be now the oldest major champion in the history of wrestling because 65-year-old Blue Panther, the man Brian Danielson obsessed over, defeated Ultimo Guerrero to win the MLW National Heavyweight Champion. Marcus, he is 65 years old.
Oh wow, and I know I'm probably overaging him at the time, but how old was PCO when he won that? What that was, the Ring of Honor World Championship?
Probably 49.
Okay,
I think PCO. Apparently, PCO is also a church software, so like, PCO is 57 currently, and he won it in 2019, so 51.
gotcha.
So I can't think of one wrestler who's 65 and older who won a world title. Oh God, did Vince McMahon win a major title?
Like, how old was he when he was do ragging it with that ECW time?
So I think he was 61. Oldest WWE champion. Because I think it's Vince. Vince won it at 54. That was in 1999, though. So if he was 54 in 1999 and he won it in 2007, that's 8 years later. So he'd be 62. So he's close. Vince is real close. But yeah, Blue Panther is now the oldest major champion in the history of wrestling, at least to my knowledge. I could be wrong. There might be somebody who won a belt at 70, right? I don't know. This is
Yeah,
the
they
oldest that
haven't.
I'm aware of.
Yeah, they haven't because they haven't crowned. Why am I blanking on this legend's name? In Noah with the mask. Why am I blanking on his name? Mentor to Sonata.
In Noah?
Yeah, does the moonsault messed up his knees? Why am I blanking on his name? As the mask, Koji. What am I? You know what I'm talking about?
Is he
Uh,
Mexican?
he's the mentor to Sonata. As the
Oh, Keiji
he
Muto.
had a like
You're talking about the Great Muta.
he had a great mood. Yeah, I don't know why I couldn't think of that, but has he been champion
Well,
in
he's officially
recent memory?
retired now. He last won the belt maybe
Gotcha.
4 years ago, 3 years ago. So he would have been like 58.
Gotcha. Okay. So still, yeah, Vince is definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Vince definitely still has the record on that one. All right, Marcus. That takes us to the end of the road. We're done with another episode. Is there anything that has caught your eye you want to mention before we head off?
that's about it. Unless I'm squeezed through the wire. How you say because what bigger role was Friday?
Yeah, Victory Road is Friday.
What's that?
Fury Road is
Uh,
Saturday.
Okay.
So it looks like Yeeling Lee, the Inspiration, Matt Cardona, Mike Santana, Eric Young, Frankie Kazarian, Zaya Brookside, and Cedric Alexander for sure were part of the invasion tonight, but because of how pathetic it was to watch, um, we wouldn't know. Um, we might actually have a little more information about that. TNA Wrestling of NXT. Okay, apparently Zachary Wentz was there as well, so I have to imagine that Trey was there. He's healthy. By the by, I love that they brought back the treehouse segments.
Same.
They Trey and Zach have so much comedic timing, and I feel like they needed this because I think that made the Rascals stand out.
Yeah.
So, also briefly, we won't touch on this tonight because again, breaking. Masha Slamovich has been accused by Akira for domestic violence. Um, the screenshots have not been independently verified. However, TNA Wrestling has released a statement to Sports Illustrated saying, "We take any allegations like this very seriously and we have begun an internal investigation." Akira has posted a statement, and apparently, situations are already developing. She's been pulled from two events already, one from Prestige and one from West Coast Pro. And Akira's statement, we
Yeah.
will. Let me read this real quick before we head off because this is significant breaking news. Akira, who was an MLW, I think he won the middleweight champion for a spell, tweeted out this morning. I woke up to this and people asking me if I was okay. Kind of want to throw up. Kind of want to go away forever. My friend held back for months because I asked her to, and I would have never said anything. I still don't really want to. I don't want to lash out in anger because I was angry, suicidal, and depressive since the end of January. I'm not alive, though, if she didn't take my calls every day while caring for her sick grandfather. I'm not alive if my roommate, Wraith, didn't laugh with me at stupid videos daily. I'm not alive if Dale, Patrick's, and Simon Gotch weren't there for me. I gave I gave a lot with little in return. I had a lot of growing up to do, and despite my progression, I was always told I was never doing enough. The things I liked and did were stupid and a waste of time. Things I told about my thoughts on my gender and the confusion I was feeling was turned on me. I was lied to about my finances and spent more than I should have because I thought we were struggling together. I almost killed myself 3 times in life to build with someone who. I'm sorry, let me reread that. I almost killed myself 3 times as the life I tried to build with someone was torn apart. and I became nothing to that person. I was like a withdrawal. Every time I went to the hospital, that person I put on a pedestal was gone. I didn't matter. I would have never said anything. I only came out with my prior experience of sexual abuse because I was spiraling alone in Japan. I tried my best, but my best was never good enough, and all my accomplishments and money were nothing but tools for someone else. Many things said in confidence were turned against me. I can't get that life back, and I can't get that money back. I can't get the last 4 years of my life back. I was just trying my best to come back and be with my family and friends and dog, and try to get signed. I dreamed of doing things. Maybe it won't happen now. I'm not angry. I'm not sad. Not anymore. I'm apathetic. I've moved on, and there's still bitterness in my stomach. I don't let it guide me. I've grown up as a person and as a wrestler. I've made up mentally, physically, and spiritually. I'm still figuring out things. I have nothing to say to that person. I adored them. I still feel the phantom pains in my heart, and every time I see a photo. There's a part of my life and history I don't get what I am now. A mature and thoughtful person with a healthy dose of CTE without the experiences I went through in isolation experience in a foreign country. But it is what it is. Whatever happens, happens. So I assume come next Tuesday we will have more to say on the matter because it does seem like things are happening and there seems to be some significance to these allegations. So we'll see what happens. This might be the end of Masha in TNA, and quite honestly, if these are true, I think it should be the end of Masha in wrestling. We kicked Mike Quackenbush out for having inappropriate relationships with legal women, but women that he was training. Mike Quackenbush is now persona non grata for a lot of that. Now, I think also some of it may have had to do with the fact that he wasn't taking allegations seriously, according to some, because
Yeah,
Rory Gulak and all that happened under his watch, and I think maybe that was also held against Quackenbush to an extent. I don't remember the specifics, but we've gotten rid of men for less. And
yeah, yeah.
Akira has photos. He has apparently he has witnesses. I would imagine. And
Yeah.
again, I'm speaking from a secondary source, not anything to do with these allegations, but a wrestler who's tied with a major company has passed on to me that Masha has a lot of issues, and that some of the things she's done
Yeah.
would truly make you disgusted. So I don't know if those are true, but I do know that I have
Yeah.
one person telling me a different set of instances, and now I have these photos and video, not video, but photos and text evidence, and Akira's own admissions painting a different story of different issues that Masha may be going through and maybe having to deal with. And it does
Yeah.
seem like these could be very, very true, considering what I've heard, not about Akira, but about things
Yeah.
Masha has done in her own personal life. So, like, this could be very, very
Yeah.
damning for her career.
It sucks really, just hearing, just reading those texts and hearing that statement. There's an added wrinkle here because oftentimes when we were, very much witnessing and reporting on the speaking out movement, um, a lot of it was women coming out against men. And I'm sure there was also stories of a lot of domestic issues because obviously a lot of wrestlers end up dating each other, as in this instance. But oftentimes we don't hear as many stories as probably are with the men talking about being abused by the women. And obviously it's hard for
Kind of lost you there for.
can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, yeah, I was just saying that just it's sad to hear that, but the added wrinkle here is that a lot of times, we heard the speaking out movement, with a lot of the allegations with the men, women towards the men here. Since then, and I'm not saying that we didn't get it with that either, because obviously we're talking about a lot of wrestling couples, as we all hear, but add a wrinkle of a man coming out against a woman, it comes off more rare because, you know. Not saying that it obviously happens, but it probably doesn't get reported as much or brought to light as much, just because we're oftentimes men are supposed to either just not say anything because it's the men just supposed to take it, or they just again, ironically enough, much like the women, just not believe.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the added wrinkle here. But sadly enough, it wouldn't be the first time we talked about some type of domestic issues between wrestling couples, unfortunately. So yeah, like you said, you always stay tapped in with the stuff, and now that you have certain sources, we'll stay on top of it. This is the last things we want to hear about, but we have to stay abreast of this stuff. So
Yeah, and I'll check in tomorrow with my individual and see if they've ever heard anything about this. But I'm sure they're gonna let me know tomorrow. Like, hey, did you hear? Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, I heard. All right, that'll wrap the show this week. Check us out on the website realnerdcorp.com, realnerdcorp.com. We're on Twitter at nerdcrp. Marcus, you're on Twitter at paradoxkid, PARADOXKID.
that's me.
You can also find me. I'm sorry. You can also find him on his other podcast, The True Penny Show, on Twitter at TRUEPENNYSHOW. Check him out there. Um, Find me on Twitter at Chad Nerdcorp, CHADNERDCORP, and on the Instagram at Chad's Photo at CHADSPHOTOHUT. Once again, you can check us out on the website at realnerdcorp.com, youtube.com/Wrestling Underground, twitch.com/Wrestling Underground. Every Tuesdays, usually around 9 to 9:20, depending on what time we get started. Check us out there for a live recording. And of course, on Twitter, or not Twitter, on YouTube for any type of, what is it, VOD. So for Marcus, I'm Chad. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for checking us out. Thanks for giving us a chance. Remember, as always, to watch more wrestling. And we'll see you next Tuesday to cover Victory Road and Fury Road. With that being said, Marcus, take us home.
Good night, me.